We should and I'm sure by the time you're walking out of this room, you will have taken so much that it will make the innovation journey a bit easier, if not much easier. I will try not to do something alone here this morning, and I will do it with other very important people who, of course, their experience will help the discussions to be what it should be. What we're looking at is discussing the journey of innovation, innovation in programming, and of course, looking at it from the perspective of my own organization, Youth of Africa, who has developed a VR on ending female genital mutilation among the other VRs that we have developed. Youth of Africa is a platform for youth, young leaders across Africa to collaborate in beautiful ways and also to share knowledge and make things work as part of contributing to sustainable development in their communities, okay? And that said about Youth of Africa, if you have not seen the VR video, the virtual reality video, please, on your way out of this hall, make sure you force the young man at the back to allow you to see it. If he is not allowing you, beckon on us and we will make sure we compel him to oblige you. Thank you. To be able to talk about this, I will invite my other colleagues. I call them comrades, and we will try as much as possible to be less official. We will be very, very less official too, so that we'll make it a very interactive. You'll be able to make your own thoughts into the discussion, and we'll have a fruitful conversation up here this morning. To join me first is my friend, and of course is your own friend too, Robert Kasanene, who is the regional coordinator coordinating SIARP and female genital mutilation policy and advocacy specialist at the AU. Please just appreciate him if you want, and you just sit down, just sit down, just sit down. I've warned him severally. I say we must have a sitting room discussion, if I can call it that, in such a way that you also can barge in and you make your contributions, and we'll get this going. And then secondly, we have no other person than our own Glory Charles, who is a distinguished public health practitioner or specialist, and also double as the chief operating officer of Al-Yatun. Please put your hands together as you help me to welcome Glory. And so our discussions will be looking in, through the prism of two particular products, innovation products, and the first is a work done by Glory, and the second is the VR done by our organization, Youth of Africa, a VR video by Youth of Africa, which is the organization I represent. And before I start running away, I am Olusegun Medupin, program manager for Youth of Africa. I could see a flyer that says program director, meaning from here now is a salary increase moving forward. I didn't reject that. Okay, so to be able to move very fast and to be able to get your attention as quick as possible. Also, we will have a video up. The tech people will put the video. It's just about 3 to 4 minutes. We'll watch the video, and it's about the work that Glory has done in the last few months, and the discussion will take life from there. Over to you. course, if you hear some languages that you don't understand, I don't want to translate it, but just make do with it and let's move on. Thank you. Please, a very beautiful news for my Francophone families. Please, can you indicate with just a raise of hand if you are Francophone? Okay, ma. Interpreter? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So can our video move? Okay. We are trying to bring the video on. How many of us have seen the VR video at the back? Maybe yesterday or before now? Okay, not many of us. Let me ask us a very straight question. What is innovation to you? There is no wrong answer because innovation is to you what you think innovation is to you. What is innovation to you?
Good morning. Thank you so much. So for me, innovation means it's a creative way of approaching an issue and ensuring that you have a sustainable solution towards it. Thank you.
Talking about creative, talking about the way of approaching an issue with a touch of solution to it. Yeah, I think your hand was up, right? You can't be wrong this morning, Melon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For me, innovation is the ideation process.
Tutatokomeza ukimwi. Sisi tukijenga ushirikiano tutaleana na wale.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So to me, innovation is the ideation process of coming up with a solution.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. And then him. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Nanette. For me, innovation is creativity that brings about change.
Thank you.
Yes, for me, innovation is just creating new ideas that help scale up or improve any kind of issues or problem within the society that you live.
Okay, we take the last two people and we'll go straight to our video.
Okay, bonjour à tout le monde.
Hi everyone. Innovation is the best way to create. For me, innovation is the best way to find a solution so that I can be able to fight against some phenomenons or just the best way. Actually, it's the best way. Creativity.
Yeah, for me, innovation basically it's finding a way of improving a particular thing. So it might not be like a new idea, but then improving on an existing product.
All right, thank you. And everyone is right. If you look at what everyone has given us a definition, you will see the cross-cutting issues and terms and themes moving around the various definitions. But let's quickly watch this video, and from there we'll take our lesson and move on. All right, technicals, over to you.
Tutatokomeza ukimwi. Sisi tukijenga ushirikiano tutaleana na wale wagonjwa watakuwa binadamu kama sisi tulivyo. Kwani ugonjwa kwa mwenzio unaambiwa hivi, mwenzako akinyolewa za kwako zitie nini? zamu yetu imefika Welo ya kukeketwa. Tutafanyaje?
2, 1, action.
Nasemaje? Kesho tunamaliza hiyo shughuli. Nitapiga mimi hiyo ngoma.
Nasikia wanapokea wasichana kutoka huko nje ya kijiji wanawakeketa, na watoto wao wanakeketwa mbali ili wasipate hatia.
Afya tu. Nani anaweza kuhisi imeunganishwa na maneno mawili gani? Pia na tool. Ambao tool inatoka kwenye katuni. Kwa hiyo it's like you're going, mnaenda kuangalia katuni lakini ambayo ina
animation kwa lugha rahisi ni unaweza kusema katuni au unakuwa na fasiri
ya katuni au ndio unasema uhuishaji
au uhuishaji ndo kabisa uko unatokotelea. Tukae pale ambapo tunafahamu vizuri, kwa sababu hata animation
daftari lake
La nani? Ni daftari la Atwana.
mpelekee, mwambie kuna mwalimu mpya hataki utoro. Kwanza, kwa nini hajaja shule? Ni mgonjwa?
Hapana, amefariki.
Alikuwa anafanyiwa sherehe.
alikuwa anachezwa ngoma. Akaumwa ghafla. Tuliambiwa hivyo tu.
Liacha.
Thank you. So we'll allow Gloria in just a minute or two to talk to us about what we just watched, right? Thank you.
Okay, good late morning, everyone. So what you have just seen in 3 minutes is a sneak peek of what we are doing at Afyatun. We are producing visual arts that aims at fostering behavioral change in our community. And our products are in form of mostly storytelling that entails to tell the stories of what is actually happening in our community and what is to be done right apart from what is done right now. So what we are looking at is behavioral change on eliminating the harmful practices in our community and not changing the existing positive cultural practices that are existing in our community. So at the start, you had a girl that was a Form 1 student, a 14-year-old. We were surprised during that visit that she has a lot to share with not only her fellow students at school, but also with us. You can see she was very confident speaking out of what is happening and what should happen in our communities. So the bottom line is we do not produce products that we think the community needs, but as I quote at the start of the video is that we are not producing for them, but rather we are producing with them, that we are taking the artistic way that we have, accompanied with the artistic way that they have, and what are the experiences in the general community and produce for them. These visual arts and products are available in majority of vernacular languages in Tanzania. The first of them that you have witnessed being Swahili, but we have also translated them into the languages of the major tribes that these harmful practices are still in. We are looking forward to partner with different stakeholders within Tanzania and even outside into making sure that we argument forces in putting an end to these harmful practices. For we believe, even though we are coming from the medical background, these harmful practices do have both societal and harmful health and medical outcomes. So that is what we are basically doing at Afyatun.
Thank you. Please appreciate that if you want to. Thank you. And so the question I will ask is why innovation? Would these have been approached or done by any other means? So I'm looking at innovation, either innovation in technology that we're talking about either innovation around programming. Why are we talking about, or why are you approaching the issue from the perspective of innovation in technology?
Okay, so we are witnessing the technological advancement in all spheres of our lives. We as human beings have been evolved since the past in evolution to this time. So we thought it's important to keep up with the pace. That is, if our every sphere of life is changing, we are adapting new ways of living life, new ways of doing things, then why not adapting these new ways of doing things into solving the problems that are existing in our communities? If we can have a simpler way of conveying the message, why don't we just use that to also address these problems? Because we believe with innovations, things becomes fast, things become simpler, because I could be in one region in Tanzania, but these products could go to places that I couldn't reach. So I could be reaching majority, but also impacting many than I have ability to meet physically. And also, much as are people evolving into social media, people evolving into using new technology as advancement, why don't we also go there? But bottom line, I can say the perpetuators of these harmful practices innovate day in, day out into making sure that whatever they desire survives. So why don't we also innovate into making sure that much as they want to grow, we are also much as putting an end into these practices.
Thank you. You just said the perpetrators of harmful practices, including FGM, child marriage, and all these. They are evolving in their thinking daily. At a point in time, we thought is all about religious inclination or traditional inclination, but now we could see that there are so many other motives that are coming to play. And if we don't approach it, if our attack to it is not also evolving, then they will be outsmarting us at the end of the day, and we'll have a whole lot of challenge on our hands to handle. But again, let me ask, I think I will ask Robert this time. I know that are we thinking innovation in isolation? Is there a framework, for instance, at the government level, at the AU level, or at those points, talking about existing agendas and policies that are actions and our activities? I know there are a couple of innovators and creators in the room. The actions, is it feeding into some certain frameworks that has been put together by the continental bodies and all that? Is this something you want to talk about?
Yes, with pleasure, with pleasure. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Oh, I should give you a cup of coffee as well. Eh? No, thank you, Shogun. And even the question for today about leveraging innovation towards the elimination of harmful practices. When we are looking at it at the level of the continent, there is a lot to really help us in our work. And so I begin perhaps in speaking a little bit about the African Union, what the opportunity there is, because many of us have a strong presence in our countries, right? You have an example here of, producing artistic products to address, a particular knowledge issue in the country. You have others who try to embed our experiences, our visual capability around the practice of FGM, fancy English, but you have the example there of the VR outside. So you have all of these different types of products, different types of innovations, as we call them, trying to get us closer to the elimination of harmful practices. But when you zoom out at the level of the continent, what exactly is there? And if you have aspirations of taking whatever you're doing at the level of the continent, what are the entry points for you, right? So at the level of the African Union, and I'm sure many of you know what it is, you have 6 different departments, all touching, of course, a variety of subject matter, from peace and security to, say, technology, electrification, to education, where it is, in fact, of the 6 departments is where you also have a specific investment on innovation. And then ourselves, who work on harmful practices, we sit in the Health and Humanitarian Affairs department there as well. So across the board, we are all guided by something called Africa's Transformative Agenda 2063. It is our version of the SDGs, although we decided 50 years, not 15 years, right? And in there is where you have the aspiration. You have the aspiration to transform the lives of African people, particularly on the area of technological advancement to unlock people's potential. So that is where the crust of the understanding of what innovation is and how it's been spelled out by member states. And hopefully with that, if we are able to take and to cascade whatever they have set up there down into the countries, you're able to have the opportunity to go from Nigeria, where you are from, and work in Tanzania, seamlessly. You're able to move from South Africa and work in Egypt seamlessly because you are responding to a continental framework. So maybe from there, I stop there for now. I hope I'm not
because
going
why talking about the Agenda 2063 and you were talking about the SDG being 15 years, something crossed my mind. We're just almost halfway through, right? And I'm thinking the last goal on the SDGs, and the people who loved and followed the SDGs in the room, we agree also, is partnership, for instance. And how much of that does the coordinating bodies, how much of that do they offer in terms of developing innovation and all that? Then what do you think the thought around partnership should be for the people in the room? One is in Nigeria doing these things, another in Tanzania doing their things. And what should partnership be like in terms of emerging technologies to end harmful practices?
I think our biggest weakness, and I hope there is another person from the AU here so they can come and say it also, our biggest weakness is communication. There is limited interaction between what's going on at that big fancy building and the rest of the continent. So often enough, people are working within a bubble and things are moving and you expect that people know what is going on. So I think the biggest way to unlock this is to try and get as much information out as possible. So whatever solutions you have a virgin opportunity to really engage with a lot of content. There is so much to get out there to people. It can be simply a podcast. It can be a way for you to visualize the change that is happening on the continent. A case in point here, it's not harmful practices. The Africa Free Trade Area, something, those who are following it. For this thing to work, really, Africa must work like a mesh. We must be able, as we were saying, for someone in South Africa with whatever they're doing, be able to work seamlessly with someone in Morocco and all the way around. But this starts with information. It starts with communication, and it starts with showing people exactly what those doors are they need to open, right? So that opens up the word you just used, partnership. But secondly, when we look at specifically harmful practices, once we are able to expose what it is that we are from the level of the African Union and the heads of states and what they have decided, what their commitment is, you are able to take that and use it right away. So some of the things we call for at that level is investment, for example, investment in services, investment in information, in care and protection of young girls and women. We call for the change of legislation, for example. A lot of countries have good laws, but they are very silent on punishment. Others have laws that are saying, banning, they're not criminalizing. So, we are very light in the kind of action that is being taken. So if we are able to demonstrate what it is, the communication at the level of the African Union, for example, even on the use of data and generating evidence, you can take that and go and make something out of it. I think my brother from Big Family 360 said it's about how you create a solution to solve an existing problem. It doesn't have to be that you've made a new kind of phone or a new kind of app, but seeing what the gap is in between 2 points and creating something that brings those points together. So partnership in that way, in that at the level of the African Union in particular, seeing what the information that is there can be used for, and you finding a way to connect that information to the community and bring it forward.
I think that last part is beautiful, talking about the definition that he gave about what he thinks innovation is, and that is not creating something new. It's improving on an existing maybe product, services, and finding new ways that it could be more impactful. I will ask my colleagues here, for instance, at the point you were thinking about your product, about this one we've just seen here, do you have a clear-cut map of how you want to finance it? And what was the initial idea of financing like to you?
Okay, I can say now that we do, even though initially we did not have a clear-cut pathway of how we are going to do this. I think this goes to most of innovators, is that as you're starting, you start with passion, that I need to solve this. I need to get my product out. I need to be part of the niche to solving all these problems that we are having. But as we go on, you come to learn that the issue of sustainability is itself a problem within a problem. That each year we are having a set of innovators applying, winning, and then years after we are not existing. That is because as we apply, we think of just the price and getting the product out. But how are we sustaining it in absence of the support is, again, as I say, the problem in a problem. So we are grateful that by the time we got to think of this, we were also provided with mentorship from the existing hubs, that we were nurtured on how to think beyond just innovating, to innovate within our innovation. That is, what sustainable ways can get us to where we want to go. And I can say, for example, initially, as we were writing down plans for how we are going to embark this journey, we thought of doing things on our own. And let me just tell you, there's where we were beginning to fail before we even begin.
All right.
Because we thought of the plan in a pen and book way, but practically it wasn't possible. So along the way, we found what you have just asked of partnership. That is, we do not have to hold on to our precious innovation and carry it forward on ourselves. So after some few months, we decided that we want to solve one giant problem, but we are a smaller group of people. So let's leverage on the power of partnerships. That is, we have 100 of stakeholders on the ground that are working on this problem for years. So let's just augment our solution within the existing systems. Instead of building a very new way of solving a problem, let's just use the existing system, but better it. As I agree, innovation does not have to be a very new set of things, but an improved way to do something. Yeah. So we just see a way that we can augment our force within the existing system and move forward with it. So we found our plan and our sustainability roadmap within the stronghold of partnership. That as we are witnessing people moving, performing cross-border female genital mutilation. Why not a cross-border anti-FGM movement? Why not a cross-border anti-FGM innovation? So that is what we planned, and we are now seeing that it's becoming possible to do it.
Thank you. We are opening the floor now for questions, for comments, and addition. Before we come to you, just to add to what she has said, I think for our VR, the VR on harmful practices, which female genital mutilation and the other part of GBV is one of it. Why did we even go there in the first place? The issue with us working around ending female genital mutilation in our own country, the issue with our organization is the fact that many young people have heard us and heard us again. And so to gain their attention and to sustain the attention in a very attention deficit period is something we have to grapple with. Very difficult to walk to her in our city and say, let me talk to you about ending female genital mutilation. But if I see her wearing a VR glasses in a public building or somewhere, I want to be like, sorry, what is that? Can I wear it? Then from wearing it, questions will start, then the education follow. And then we don't know where that can lead to, right? And because of that, our innovation didn't start with the innovation itself. It started with the problem. And I think when we talk about financing some of these things, when people first of all come up with the innovation or with a product, with a service, they're now looking for how it will merge with the problem. Is a convoluted or overturned system of doing things. And so lastly on that, we also build whatever we build tailored to our present reality and pocket, right? We are not innovating for Robert AU. We are not creating it for UNFPA, for instance. And so we created it with a standard of what we will use. Then if we are fortunate to get in a room with him, AU and UNFPA, then that is a plus for us, right? So the hopes and the expectations are manageable. And lastly, our product is also scalable. All right, let's take the questions. The first hand there, number one, then number two at the back. Who is number three, so that we'll get up to 5 before we roll. Number 3. And okay, the bros is not raising hand. Okay, number 4. So this 4 for now. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Number 1.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Zola Dimeji from Nigeria. Thank you so much for those amazing information that you just shared with us. So I just have a few questions for Robert and Dr. Gloria. And the first one goes to Robert. It's quite amazing to see that, African Union is also stepping up, to provide sustainable environment for every woman and girls within the country they live. And I'm just wondering the Agenda 2063, and because if you talked about sustainable development goals, one of the things that is helping to move the agenda is resource mobilizations. And I feel that, I just wanted to ask, is there anything around, financing opportunity to help drive this initiative across all countries? That's number one. Number 2 is that we have representative, because we know our leaders just go to the levels of the African Union, sign to any document and come back without not doing any action. So are there representative across countries who are supposed to be the drivers of these agendas so that it can align with the developmental goals of every country, which is very, very important. And I also want to say that, do we have any affirmative actions across youth-led organizations to raise awareness about this agenda so that we can all, have opportunity to know what it is, what can we do towards achieving it at the end of the day. Down to Dr. Gloria, thank you so much for those amazing work you're doing in Tanzania. So I'm just wondering, when it comes to innovation, I have issues around ethical practice. And that ethical practice, which is a sensitive issue when it comes to issues around gender-based violence. And I just wanted to ask, so how were you able to manage issues around confidentiality for using a survivor-centered approach for any survivors who want to share his or her story? And how were you able to actually, manage issues around confidentiality? That is one. Secondly is that, I go to conferences and I see innovators coming on board to just mention data. Some of them will say we've been able to reach 6,000 survivors in our country, 1 million survivors in our country, and we have different innovations saying different data. So do we have a coordination bodies that allow innovation to see their data, because we may be double counting, and that can actually affect some of the work we're doing at the levels of achieving that results that we need. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's go to Mama.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Mohammed Ayub. I'm coming from Shero County. I'm representing a Binti Hope organization, which is focusing on girl child education. My first question, I'm referring to Dr. We have been having these documentary issues that has been mostly affect those survivors, especially when can be, for instance, documentary can be emotionally challenging to watch, especially for survivors and individuals with personal continuation to the issues. While they can raise awareness and promote emphasis, they may also traumatize them. Survivor or deter individual from engaging with the topic further. The information, Tolme Haida de empowering to the girl and women. Most of the time you may to get, for instance, if someone has been affected by the issue of FGM, and then we have something like this documentary issues. Someone who has been passing through FGM, he knows the challenges and everything. So how are we going to cope with those emotional feelings? How are we going to make sure that they may access to these documentaries without having that personal emotionals and also things? And another question regarding to issue of FGM, mostly from our communities. Women, we cannot be the champion of FGM because most of the people believe that we don't understand anything based on FGM. This campaign has been always been done by all women and ladies and professional by the survivors. So the question be, how can men and boys be engaged in this fighting FGM and GBV, especially my sister is here. This question was raised in the main podium, especially in Somalia and northern Kenya, ASAL communities. What effort being made to promote the gender and the equality positive in masculinities? What support and system can we be putting to those areas that have been affected with no any technologies or any electricity? People have no network, have no any access to the technologies. So how are we going to cope with these things? Those are my two questions, kindly. Thank you.
My name is Makiana. I work on ending violence against women and girls. And I wanted to just reiterate what came up in the main room again, using social media and apps and at what point FGM happens. And I wanted to look at the girl in the village and the practitioners in the village. How sure are we that the social media or even the internet availability is accessible to the both practitioners and that young girl who is likely to be a survivor? Then on the second one, and recognizing that, of course, this issue of FGM being bedrocked in patriarchal norms, and it's an attitude issue, sometimes it might take difficult to measure results. But when you talk about data and statistics, can we proudly say that over time, maybe the level of innovations that we are doing have moved the numbers from happening or not happening from this level to another level? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to ask about the role of media in innovations. I know that media and innovators have had like some conflicts, whenever you're promoting or like some feel like the ideas might be stolen. It has happened, right? So like what is the role of or how rather can innovators partner up with the media? Because all of you guys have identified media as a critical stakeholder in this. We have documentaries, we have social media, all that is part of media. So how can innovators partner up with media for the betterment of the best interest of the child?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. And thank you so much to the presenters. I have a couple of questions. First off, I'll direct it to Dr. Gloria. Thank you so much for your presentation. One of the things I took home from what she said is about how we've evolved. And looking at things, we see that we've evolved from a stage where technology should be incorporated in everything that we're doing. So my question is, how do we synergistically collaborate to share innovations based on technology? Because we see, I'm Nigerian, but I work in the Gambia. I work for an organization called the Women Pathfinder. And we see people inventing things in Nigeria. We see people inventing things in Kenya, in Tanzania. There's just a lot of innovation that if we come together, we have a platform where innovators put everything they've done, we'll see that we will have a quick acceleration and rapid effect towards the abandonment of FGM. So how do the bodies, for example, UNICEF and UNFPA specifically, put all these innovators together in a platform where we get to share what we've invented, our approaches and how they have worked for other people, other key players? How do we do that? I like a question he raised about the AU. We know the AU are there, but they're sort of, I'm sorry to say, because I'm going to be very blunt about it, they're sort of silent partners when it comes to harmful practices and certain things. For example, the country I work with, the Gambia, we have AU representatives everywhere. They're always in international meetings and collaborations. They are there to state these rules and things that have to be done, but they are very silent as to a lot of things. How do we reach the 2063 goal without, we don't even know the way forward? AU didn't tell us what to do. They didn't break down their plan of action. How are key players supposed to come on board with this? How are we going? For example, UNFPA knows they want to get something at 2030, and we're working, and that's why we're here. We're seated here. We have AU summits time to time, and after the summit, everything just goes down. So that question he raised was very, very important, and I'm just reiterating to the question in case you have something to share. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. And feel free, because I think more people should say these things. For example, for the work on ending harmful practices on female genital mutilation, there's literally one person at the African Union. And it just so happens that person is even seconded by an external agency. So all the 55 member states and the money that they give to the African Union Commission, somehow there is not enough money to even pay one person to be there. So I think there are quite a lot of challenges. It's not just that one. There are quite a lot of challenges. And yes, even me, I'm asking for a friend. Yeah. But yes, it's just one person there. And it doesn't matter who it is, but it's the limitation that it shows overall in the organization. But this goes to what I was saying earlier, that look at this major challenge as a huge opportunity, right? For some of us who are looking for ways to break out there in the world of, say, media and make a little money through, not a little, actually, a lot of money through, online content sharing. There is an opportunity here because there is a lot of information sitting somewhere, and there is almost 1.3 billion people on the continent who are eager to hear about this, just like you. And so you can be a bridge here, and you can use a whole lot of ways to do it. You can do it through text. You can have a website that just chronicles things that are coming up every day for people who can't listen but can read really quickly. You can do a podcast. You can, a lot of things that you can deploy to try and meet that gap. Unfortunately, people there are focused more on this ambitious list of things to do, maybe so ambitious that we can't do it in 15 years, so we have to do it in 50 years, right? And so when we zoom into Agenda 2063, it is now 10 years into implementation. The first 10 years had a decade plan of action, and there's a whole lot of people who are involved in this, but it might be news to you, right? We have now entered into the second decade, and really there is a lot of opportunity there where we can come in to extend ourselves for the gaps that exist on the continent. So if I could then begin to answer the other questions, are they aligned to the SDGs? And yes, at the very beginning of putting this together, there was a clear, ambition to make sure that we are connecting to the global agendas. But of course, there's some degree of, realisticness of that whole plan, and maybe the 10-year plans help us to be able to connect to the global discussion, right? And so, yes, there is a connection. For example, for the elimination of harmful practices, the language on SDG 5 and Aspiration 6 of the Agenda 2063 speak quite similar, ending all forms of gender-based violence, including harmful practices. So finding ways for that conversation at the global level to be the same as on the continent, and for you to feel comfortable to associate with Agenda 2063 and not just SDGs would be really, really great. Is there a financing plan? Yes, there is, but it's very limited. As you can tell, many of our countries do not contribute their portion of obligation to the AU budget, and so you're always, picking and choosing what you can really use. And then finally, country level representation. Yes, it is our countries. That representation is our countries, because they are the ones who sat together at the level of the continent to come up with this plan. And so obviously we should be able to talk to the specific people in our countries, and these come from usually the planning commissions or planning units. So do reach out, find out where there is room for you to engage. And that is the same for young people as well. There are also a lot of other interesting questions,
Yeah,
many
so,
engagements. So maybe I can
listen,
come
we
back.
have just about 3 or 4 minutes to wrap this up. So maybe she will take a few, and I'll take the last group and rush out of here.
Okay, so I will couple my questions, maybe take 2 questions and give 1 answer that is general. For the issue of ethical practice, confidentiality, and this documentary affecting survivors. So for our product, it does not at all engage the use of an actual person's voice, face, name, or anything that can trace back to the survivors, because for a very long time, these survivors have been psychologically affected by the documentaries that we are producing, and that because we have been producing for them and not them telling us what they want to hear. So for so long, some of the documentaries gives power to the practice. That is, we see documentaries of women crying, of the sharp objects that are used. And just picture yourself, you have been cut by a knife and you see a knife again, it will hurt you the same. So in our products, there is no any form of giving the power back to the practice, but rather giving survivors hope that there is life, a very brighter life and future ahead of them. That is telling them that being a survivor does not mean that you have to suffer for the rest of your life. That is why the products themselves give them information of where to get fast psychological help and other physical help that they may require, because some of these suffer for lifetime because of how the practice have been practiced to them. So we preserve ethical issues of ethical clearance and confidentiality by not displaying who the actual victim is, because by the end of the day, some of these documentaries led to these people being segregated from their communities just because they have shared their stories. So we take the stories of many survivors and transforming them into our storytelling product. That is, you take 10 stories, make 1 story that relates across them. So I think that is somehow clear, and I'll be happy to answer more of these questions and actually to show more of what we are producing so that it can be related. For the issue of media, the use of media, the use of social media, and marginalized communities that have no access to this. First is, for the sake of media, we, I'll speak for our experience that we are also engaging with the people that were existing, again, partnerships. For our side, we do partner with medias, being it televisions, radios, and other journalists, to making sure that even they get the proper understanding of these issues and they help us to disseminate information back to our communities. So it's not the role of who does better, but how can we do it together? Yes.
All right. Thank you. Because of the time, you have just less than 1 minute, maybe 30 seconds.
I'll try. And I think there were two other really important questions. The one on engaging men and boys, as well as I think if I summarize it well, Madam in the back there, I think you were saying, is innovation a problem? Because the more we are doing these things, it seems like the data is increasing, right? So the one on engaging men and boys, I think how to do it, I think we all have the answer. But I just wanted to highlight here, we've just finished an important gathering in Tanzania, the International Conference on FGM. And this was a resounding call. And please, if you can, do follow the analysis from there. There could be some great ideas and discussions coming up. You may go to ICFGM 2023, ICFGM2023.org for some more information. But I think this is more of a question for closer dialogue together, not necessarily answers from a specific person. But the other one on whether or not innovation is a problem, the use of data and evidence kind of opening up and showing us that there is more happening. I think that's a function of innovation. The more we are exposing the society to more information, more is being reported, more is being tracked. So even the practice that was hiding, it comes to the fore, and we have more data. So again, look at this as an opportunity to also engage in reporting and getting that information out there into the society. Thank you.
She also wants to chip in 20 seconds.
So just a second on the issue of data. I will say that indeed I acknowledge that some innovations do put the concept of, if I say big numbers, it gives relativity to my solution. So I'd say check out where you get your information as an innovator. I think at least every country in Africa have what we call DHS. So for us, DHS gives accurate numbers, and nowadays the world has become a global. So if I tell you in Tanzania right now we are having 70% prevalence of FGM, you can simply pick up your phone and Google data for Tanzania, and it will give you specific results for that. So I can say for every innovator, make sure that whatever you feed people is actually what is really existing, because data is available in real time and surveys are done. So I can say you don't have to say 300 million of people that have reached, while actually you have reached 1,000. Speak with your 1,000, because even if you help 10 people, I believe that you have made an impact rather than the big numbers that you made.
All right, thank you. We appreciate every one of us. Right there in my country, in the other side of Africa, about a year, 2, 3 years ago, I can't remember, a young lady, 12, 13 or 14, I can't remember, was continuously raped by a father and a son, right? The mother in the house did not do anything until the girl died. It happened in a village, and justice wouldn't have been found. Nobody will seek justice. Even if the people in the community are crying for justice, their voice might have been too low to be able to cry for justice in those kind of places. Then I think the people on social media or somewhere got it up, and that is to answer to the question that the people in the grassroots, they don't have technological, they don't have the internet and all that. It was a trend on the social media, and that justice could not be perverted or subverted. And they had to, government has to now pay attention to it. You will agree with me. In the village where I come from, well, there is no light there right now. But if the guys on the social media want $1 million USD raised for that, for my community, they could do it in a matter of days. This is what technology can do and continue to do. I wish us well, but there is still one very technological innovation that you will need to hear about. I think it's right there in the next section in the main pavilion. When I listened to the guy did his presentation, I was wowed. You will need to come with me. Put your hands together as you appreciate these people and yourself. Thank you.
That was fantastic. I just have a few announcements that we would like you to know. We initially had said there was going to be a tea break, but it's been postponed or canceled. So that we can save time, we're going to go immediately to the next session. So here in Mount Kenya Room D, if you scan your tags, you will see the topic we're going to be happening here is innovative approaches to cultivate our stories for behavior change. If you want to participate in that, you can remain behind, scan your badge and see what will be happening at the auditorium and in room C at the extreme end. Thank you.
anigoo ah Ifraax Axmed u ololeynayo la dagaalanka gudniinka gabdhaha. Hadda waxaan inta u fadhiyaa in aan soo baxsado tikidadii aan ku bixi lahayn. Waxaa kusii soconaa Dhusmareeb, magaalada gobolkana lagu sheegay inay ku dhimatay gabadha 10 jirka ah ee dhiig baxa iyadoo oo waqtigaas gudniinka gabdhaha lagu sameynayo. Waxaan dareemay runtii
Hello. Hi, Jumbo. So good afternoon. I am your moderator for today. So welcome to this session. I would like to quickly introduce myself. My name is Daisy Diamante Leoncio. I'm the Regional Communications Advisor of UNFPA East and Southern Africa. I'm based out of Johannesburg, and I saw a lot of you dancing last night. So you cannot disguise the fact that this is not the fun group. So today, we are going to talk about storytelling, right? So how do we use and how do we harness the power of storytelling? One, it is quite universal. A lot of us grew up with our grandmothers. You know, I'm coming from Southeast Asia, which is like 10,000 kilometers away from here or more. But one thing that I remember fondly is my grandmother telling me stories while I was growing up. It can be fables, it can be fantasy stories, it can be stories about my ancestors. So I think here in this region, here in Africa, you are the most fantastic storytellers that I've ever met in my global travels. You have it embedded in your culture, in your tradition, in your heritage. And as a communications practitioner, I have been with the UN for more than 15 or so years. And I have seen the transition of how we are harnessing communications tools. And storytelling is the most effective way of, one, changing behavior, two, advocating for a cause, and three, for raising awareness. So that is just like an overall view of our session. And I do apologize, we're running a little bit late. Fashionably late, as they say. And we have quite, an expected discussion with our special guests. And I would start with Shudu Musida. You have met her last night. We're going to show a quick video of Shudu and her background, and that just gives you an introduction of who she is and how close it is to her heart, about gender equality and protecting the rights, the human rights of young girls and women. Okay, so if we can play the video, please. All right, so we're having technical problems, as you can probably see. So let's play the video of Shudu. And I think they're busy. Play the video of Shudu, please. The other one. The last tab. The last tab. To the right. That one. Thank you.
I call the mind the powerhouse, the tool that can change lives and the narratives that exist in our society. For any change to come about in our society, we need to empower the mind. If we do not, we will live in a society that has low levels of self-awareness. And it is my belief that education is the key to change. When I was crowned Miss South Africa, it was the fulfillment of a lifelong ambition. The most meaningful part of winning the crown was the voice that being Miss South Africa gave me.
So we're very honored today because Shudu is
In today's heavily
right. And so we heard, no, come on up, Shudu. This is going to be an informal discussion. I love this woman. She's wonderful. Oh, mutual love. So, you heard her, the voice. So she's going to speak to us about the voice. But also Shudu is a writer and she's a storyteller. That's what makes it special to have her with us today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Shudu Musida, the UNFPA Regional Champion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to be here, and it was so interesting when I got the brief that this is about storytelling. I was recently in Ireland, and one of the biggest things that came up was the power of storytelling. Power of storytelling to address the social challenges that we have, but specifically mental health, because as an African population, we do have a lot of stories to tell, but very few times do we tell them about the things that matter to us as the young generation. Allow me to take you back to the heart of my journey. I think as you saw there, storytelling has been a tool that I've used in my advocacy for the past 3 years. I want to take you back to my humble village in Limpopo, Hamasia, where my story began. In that place, I witnessed the daily struggles of women and young people fueling a burning desire to create a world where their voices held weight. Their stories provoked change and their dreams blossomed. The person who ignited the storytelling thing in me, or this burning desire, was my grandmother, Bomarandera. Today, I stand before you honored to be a UNFPA regional champion. And the reason why I decided to work with the UNFPA was because of the stories that I'd heard and knowing that we've got power as young people and women to be the change that the world needs to see. We're here to talk about a pivotal theme, which is harnessing the power of innovation to drive a change through stories, our stories. In this digital era, innovation serves as a mighty instrument for transformation, and at its core is the art of storytelling. Stories are the threads that unite us. They traverse borders and cultures, transcending the barriers that often divide us. You know, the most interesting thing last night was looking at all of you guys dancing. I looked at you, and there was one thing that held us together, our common goal to just be better, to rewrite the narratives that have been written about Africa. In that room, we were all the same, right? In that room, we were brothers and sisters. And I just felt this thing inside me that made me feel like I love being African with everything that is inside me. Yes, we've got our challenges, correct? But the beauty of it is our stories can help us change those narratives that have been told about young people, that have been told about Africa, and help us find ways to make innovative changes for the world that we want to see. Empowering women and girls with rights and choices is paramount if we are to unlock their full potential. At the core of their empowerment lies bodily autonomy, the freedom to make informed choices about their bodies and lives without coercion or violence. It is imperative that we dismantle the barriers that are hindering their progress and create a society that cherishes and celebrates their autonomy. You know, the thing about bodily autonomy is that we are never told about it. I've had many conversations with young women, and one interesting thing is, I was in a panel and someone said we're stripped of our bodily autonomy from birth as women. The beauty of being here is that we can get to rewrite those narratives to make sure that the future generations of women that we know in our respective countries on the African continent know what their bodily autonomy is. That starts with education. That starts with knowing who we are and our power. What is at the mandate of this? What is at the core of this mandate, you might ask? I believe is storytelling, the power of storytelling. I think as we go into the session, we're going to meet an incredible woman who used her story to change the narratives of the woman where she comes from, Somalia. Let me unveil a personal chapter in my life. During my Miss South Africa reign, as you saw, I wrote a children's book called Shero Finds Her Magic. That was my way of telling my story. When I won Miss South Africa, honestly, I didn't think I was good enough for the crown because of my background. I'd been bullied, I had imposter syndrome, and I didn't feel like I belonged at the seat that I'd been given as Miss South Africa. But through writing my book, Shero Finds Her Magic, I got to rewrite my narrative and realize that I'm more than enough and I deserve the seats at the tables that I occupy. The beauty of our stories is that they make us reflect. Not only our stories, the stories of those that came before us. You get to see the strength in our mothers, our sisters, and the women that came before us. And we get to rewrite the narratives to empower their stories, but our futures as well. So when I wrote that book, it made me realize that I can change my narrative, but I can use my voice to change the narratives of the women that are coming up after me. I can use my story and my voice to make sure that my sister, Jonaka, knows what her bodily autonomy is, knows that she's more than enough, knows that her voice can make a change in the society that we live in. We grow up being scared to use our voices because we wonder if it's enough, if we're making sense. But when we use our voices, we not only empower our minds, we not only empower our bodies, but we empower societies to be better than what we have experienced. In our digital age, we cannot ignore the dangers of online violence, which was another chapter in my story, where after I won Miss South Africa, it was not only convincing myself that I deserved that seat, but now convincing an online community where I was being bullied, another place where young women and girls aren't safe, that I am good enough, that I know my power, that I know my strength. And yes, you're bullying me, but that is a reflection of you, not me. So the digital online space is another space where women and girls are unsafe. And it is important through innovation and through campaigns like these, that we use those spaces to create safety and awareness of the rights and the strength of women and girls. Women and girls in this particular space face this menace where online violence ranges from harassment to blackmail and exploitation. I know for a fact that it leaves deep scars and ruins reputations, causing immense mental suffering, and in the worst cases, leads to tragedy. The reason why I decided to focus on mental health, especially in that space, was because in my country, a lot of young people were dying by suicide. One girl's name, one girl's story that actually changed my life. I remember I was in OK for a while. Her name was Rufuno. Rufuno was being bullied at school, but then it trickled over into online, where she not only had her schoolmates in that space making her feel like she's not good enough, but the online space where most of us seek refuge. I mean, we're always on our phones. And she went on there and she was being bullied at all sides of her life. Rufuno took her life. She was only 15 years old. Her story forced government, including our Ministry of Education, to relook at mental health and the online violence that currently persists in our societies. Thanks to campaigns like the Body Right campaign with the UNFPA, we embark on a mission to terminate online violence and transform the digital sphere into a haven for all, especially for vulnerable women and girls. In the face of this challenge, it is our duty to act. So I implore all of you today to be strong advocates for comprehensive sexuality education, create safe spaces for our mental health and for the mental health of many women and girls, not just on the African continent, but globally. Challenge unjust laws and ensure that reproductive health services and are provided and stand up against all forms of gender-based violence. The power is in our hands, and I hope we know that. As we sit here, we have the power and the agency to change the world that we want to see, or to build the world that we want to see. But we know that there's many different spheres that are in it right now, which is where innovation comes in. Digital violence has become another way to disempower women and girls, and it is up to us to find innovative solutions to make the change, not only within ourselves, but also in the digital space, which is the world that we live in today. So today, I ask each and every one of you to embrace innovation as a way to share our stories and to create a change. Let us use technology for good, which is what it was meant for, and multimedia platforms to make our stories heard even louder. Together, we can tackle harmful practices, safeguard our bodily autonomy, and bring about lasting change. I'd like to express my gratitude to each and every one of you, the dedicated organizers and my fellow speakers who I'm going to be speaking to today. But just for us sitting here is enough for us to know that there's more than just one of us who wants to make a change. And for that, I just have to say thank you for inspiring me to want to do more. And I hope through these sessions and I hope through the summit, we are all left with a burning desire to do more, because sometimes it can be discouraging feeling like what we're doing is not enough. Thank you so much. And together we can create a world where we can use our stories and tell them in an innovative way to create the world that we want to see. So thank you.
Thank you, Shudu. So that's really a beautiful testimony about the magic of storytelling, the power of storytelling. So I'm sure, please don't forget to jot down questions for Shudu, because we're going to ask her to come back later. And maybe if you want to ask questions about her book, has things changed in the community? Has it had impact on the young girls and women out there? So I think this is a good example and a good platform for us to talk about practical things about storytelling. So we are joined today by a Somali Irish activist. She's quite famous. So Ifra, I think you are online, but before we turn it over to you. So Ifra, I'm sure you're aware, you're familiar with her. She's quite a powerhouse when it comes to defending the rights and choices of women and girls, especially on ending female genital mutilation. So Ifra, I met her in Mogadishu not too long ago. So when I was looking at her, I was like, wow, you know, she's a representation of why we are here today, of why we are doing these things we are doing, because we are the hope of the current and future generation. So I would like to share with you a real sort of like a trailer, a movie trailer of a girl from Mogadishu, which is, you know, one of the biggest advocacy efforts of our colleague Ifra. So if you don't mind playing the video, so let's take a moment to watch.
Beautiful, isn't it?
That's the last thing I remember seeing. Nala.
haddii fursad aad u haysatid inaad tagtid waa inaad ka faa'iidaysatid.
افرح نقرا عدد واحد. ايش يبغى هاي؟
انت
markaa u tagtida waxaa leedahay qaxootiga Ireland waa dal fiican. What's your name, dear? Where are you from? My name is Ifrah Ahmed. Halkaan nabadgelya ku haysataa.
If we're going to just do a little examination down below, nothing to worry about.
Would you ask her how did it happen?
Sit there. Tanwa naga. Kaswa talking kena.
I think we all know a lot about, but a thing we don't talk about cutting.
Meeshan waaye meesha cutmit. Waana dhaxan keena.
Khalad.
Ifrah, sano.
I will not stop talking. I will not stop talking until we are free of FGM.
Your best days are still ahead. And Ireland, if anyone ever says otherwise, just respond, yes, we can.
Waxaan kugu dhahay gabdhaha fiican ma hadal badan.
I will not be silenced. Until girls like me are free of the fear, the pain, the shame, I will not stop. Whether black or white, we are all women. Women who are entitled to the same human rights, no matter where we come from.
That is so inspirational. And I've seen it won a lot of awards and it has the global attention. And I like the part that she said, let's not stop talking. All right. So today we are very honored to have Ifrah Ahmed with us. Ifrah, perhaps you would stop the video. We hear a background.
Independence, to scout and skirmish in the French and Indian Wars. U.S. Army Rangers were the first to land on.
Okay, hang on for a second. We're having like some issues, technical. But anyway, this is the beautiful thing about innovation, isn't it? And sometimes you have to learn by making mistakes. And this is very good. It's not a mistake. It's a beautiful trial. So Ifrah, it's an honor to see you again. And thank you very much for being inspiring to millions of people, and especially for sharing your story, because it's such a beautiful story. And it's not just for us, but it's for everyone to hear. So perhaps you can walk us through your experience and also about the documentary or the film that we just watched a few minutes ago. So over to you, Ifrah. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, I do remember we met in Mogadishu, and it's really good to see you again. And thank you for inviting me to be part of this conference, which is same time emotion. And, you know, again, is a way of powerful of bringing young people. I've been listening in the morning sessions. So as you watch the movie, A Girl from Mogadishu, she mentioned that it has won awards. You will think that a woman who went to Ireland as a refugee, who is now a woman who is a activist and working on ending female genital mutilation, Somalia and beyond. And also there's a movie, but the movie can basically my own personal experience. So as now we have young people and we are thinking of the best way of telling stories and ending the harmful practice, I just want to share a few things about my personal experience before I talk about how, you know, the movie came and how I started on Ifrah Foundation. So I came to Ireland as a refugee, and you know, and when you're in a country and you knew, there's a sort of a medical check, and you see in the movie that when the doctor was asking, he wanted to check on the pillow to see, you know, and it was for me like, you know, saying, no, this is a cultural practice, is our culture, you know, for me it was a normal things. But what made me to be an activist is that the another refugees who have been through same practice as mine, even the worst. So I was living with another 18 young women from different countries in Africa. And, you know, going through the hospital in the evening when I back to the hotel, I asked them, even though English was not our language, but, you know, when you have a common issue, there is a certain language you understand each other. So I asked them what happened, the checkup. And I remember one of the young women from Guinea Conakry said that she was cut, kind of a broken glass, you know, how she was cut and how she was mutilated. And, you know, I felt that we have to do something. And then I started with Somalian community here in Ireland, where I am now, and talking to the community was not really easy because I thought female genital mutilation was something that everyone can talk. But I kind of realized that it was a culture that has not been talked in publicly, has not been discussed, family or anyone. So, you know, talking to the people, that brought me risk of basically saying, okay, I shouldn't be speaking, but that led me to become where I am now as an activist. Then in Ireland, there was no legislation. So my main goal was young girls who are born and raised in Ireland to have, you know, protected by the Irish law, where now Ireland has been legislate on female genital mutilation since 2012. I became Irish citizen in, you know, 2013. Then I decided, you know, Somalia is a country where FGM is practiced 98%. And myself, I have been through on the cut twice. So I feel that if I had a voice in Ireland, I could have a same in Somalia. Then through that voice lead me to basically set up IFRA Foundation. As you know, a country where, you know, been a war over 30 years and, you know, female genital mutilation is a cultural practice. People were really, people were very difficult to understand. Good, Hannah. And so people were very hard to understand that, you know, I was campaigner and advocate on ending female genital mutilation because I meet with a lot of mothers who have seen that if they were cut, they will do same to their daughters, they will cut, and, you know, a lot of things. So for me, being in Somalia since 2014, that allowed me to be a real activist, which I have seen young girls who were cut, which I have seen young girls, young women who have been dying for bleeding on female genital mutilation. So on that, I feel, you know, I'm in right country and there is a place that I can make a difference. But to say it, in Somalia, you know, when you meet with the mothers and you try to talk to them, they would say, I was cut and I have to cut my own daughter. So that made me even more upset because, you know, as a mother, you have been through on female genital mutilation and saying that I was cut and I have to cut my own daughter, that is very hard to understand. So through Global Media Campaign, UNFPA and Somalia, we have done a lot of training. The training started with basically the religious leaders, because we believe the religious leaders are the key of element of ending FGM in Somalia. So sorry about sorry, you know, being a mother and have a small toddler, it's not easy. And she just come to the room. So, you know, working with the Global Media Campaign and UNFPA has given me really platform where we can train the religious leaders, journalists, and everyone, and also the civil society. So I remember back in 2018, when we were hosting one of our media training, that there was a young girl called Deka who have died on bleeding. And I remember, you know, one of our journalists who discovered the story, we tell her to break it on social media, on her platform where she have done it. But to say again, in Somalia, and it was very hard people to speak about FGM in publicly. I remember going there and, you know, organized to speak with a journalist who is a male journalist to talk about FGM. And he said, no, I'm not going to talk about FGM. He asked me, what are we going to talk? I say FGM, and he said he didn't want to talk. So he brought in the female journalist, and still I did the interview. But today where I can say that, you know, whether it's a man or women, everyone are talking about FGM, and everyone are, you know, wanted to end. In Somalia, we set up a campaign called Dear Daughter, where we actually, every mother makes a pledge for her own daughter, because hearing mothers saying that I was cut and I have to cut my own daughter, as a me having a daughter is hard. So Dear Daughter, we actually set up with the UNFPA and Somalia and Global, and we tested and we see that it will work in Somalia. Is similar to a Salima campaign, and is a mother who's making a pledge to her own daughter. Instead of saying I was cut, I have to cut, to say that she wants to educate her daughter and making a promise that she wouldn't allow her to go through what she has been through. In that, actually, it helps. Our pledging now, it's over 80,000 pledges around Somalia, and also it was adopted by the Somalian government. The first launch of Dear Daughter was launched with UNFPA, IFRA Foundation, and the Somali federal government. We went to the Somali region, where we also launched in Kismayo, which is a Jubaland, and then southwest, southern Somalia. So for us is, Dear Daughter, to make it as a national campaign. And today this conference, it will fit really well on our Dear Daughter campaign, because it's all about sharing the story. And the girl from Mogadishu is about how to share a story, to tell a story about ending on female genital mutilation. So for us, it's been really great. And other thing I really want to say, and I'm so proud, is that our campaign on Dear Daughter was only 1 year old when we actually had the 3rd place in global website campaign. So Dear Daughter.org with UNFPA became a really 3rd place as a global website, which I'm really happy, because it shows how much effort we have put it on the campaign and how we reached to global recognition. So now I see Somalia is 75% are young people, and the young people, and watching this morning speeches and people talking, seeing in the room a lot of young people, that makes me really proud and say now is the time to end the FGM. And the ending FGM, it comes from the youth, it comes from you, it comes from young people. We just need to get our leaders to adopt us and to listen to our voice. Now again, being Somalia is 75% young people, everyone have a smartphone. Everyone sees, FGM on social media like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. People hear, people talk. And I think doing the storytelling, it will help really well, and it will fit on. Now we are very close to end FGM and globally. So I'm so proud that I say, sometimes I say I am an ambassador for UNFPA, because we have a really good relationship on, the cause of ending FGM. And of course, we have also a Frontline End FGM, which is a young activist who came together and now looking into different way of, being together and ending FGM. Frontline is basically young activists from African countries who came together, who want to end FGM. IFRA Foundation, we are working in Somalia as a, Dear Daughter, not only that what we are doing, but also I heard this morning, one of the young girls, they were talking about in IDP camps. And I just want to give you a little bit in IDP camps, the positive impact we made. The climate change has affected not only Somalia, but also the money of, the countries around the world. In Somalia, we have actually trained 4 IDP camps, which each IDP camp, personal displaced, has a 150 householders. So, those people who come from rural area, they are carrying their own practice of female genital mutilation, because they believe in the rural area it was normal to practice. And when they come and allocate it outside Mogadishu, they still want to do the same thing. So what we did is we brought it from the gatekeepers from the IDP camp, personal displaced. We brought it the Holy Quran teachers teachers. We also brought it to all the leaders in the camp, and we brought it together with religious leaders, with the medical expert, with the journalists, and we give them training. So after the training, we have distributed the women in IDP camp with the male, the leaders, almost over 100 radio FM. So, globally, we celebrate International Women's Day, Zero Tolerance, 16-day activism, and zero tolerance on FGM, and of course, Women's Day and African Child's Day. So we make sure the women in IDP camp to turn on the radio when the religious man is speaking on the radio and talking about female genital mutilations has no place in Islam. We also bring the radio to journalists who will talk about it, and we bring a medical expert who will talk about, the medical expert who basically would give background of the risks of practicing on FGM. So we actually do a lot of different ways on our campaign to end FGM. I think I don't have a minute to talk. I don't know. I see blind. Oh, now it's back. So, for us is basically being inside the community and working together. And now with Frontline and the FGM, we are hoping to basically start a caravan that travels from Mauritania to Somalia. And because, for me, it was an idea. Women who lives in the IDP centers who really doesn't understand when I'm talking about the death of young girls who died for bleeding, or talk about the story and documentaries that we made it on FGM. Saying it and screening on a small computer, it makes difference. So I'm so really excited the launch of Frontline Ending FGM Caravan, which I am hoping that it will be first in Somalia, so we can educate the women in the IDP center, because that caravan will help us to have a projector and projector and play documentaries and stories about the young girls who have died on FGM, those people in the IDP camp, to realize the reality and the fact that is happening in Somalia. And still we continue our Dear Daughter campaign, and also the religious leaders workshop, media training, and so on. And I think it's not easy. Somalia, which is 98% female genital mutilation is practiced. Then also there was a lot of, every day you hear a young girl died for bleeding, you hear a young girl lost her life because of the childbirth. But now that has reduced because, amount of awareness we have given to the community, and, allowing them to listen to the FM about the story about FGM and all that. So I maybe stop here and allow people to ask questions. But for us as me, activist going back to Somalia, has given me a level of, raising the awareness. I'm not saying that we are zero tolerance in Somalia on FGM, but I say that the death of young girls of dying for bleeding have reduced it. If I can say a little bit about Kismayo, which is Jubaland, there was one day 28% were cut, 28 girls were cut in one day. 8 of them, they were bleeding and then they were brought to hospital in Kismayo, where they get actually help, and they repaired and they fixed. So at least now we are seeing in the rural area who are practicing on FGM, but they also, when they see girls are bleeding 1 or 2 hours, they are bringing to hospital. There was a Dhaka story that you will be watching, I'm sure. And Dhaka died on FGM in 2018. But Dhaka story became a national story and international story. So many women who have come forward when they cut their own daughter, I went back without they to know who I was, asking them questions. How did they know that? How did they actually brought their daughters to hospital? And they were talking about, because we hear on the radio, we have heard on the news that young girls have died on FGM because of bleeding. So that is what brought us to hospital. And I did a small documentary called This Is My Story. And storytelling, you can see the power it is itself, like producing a small short films about FGM and talking about the reality of the fact that is happening on the ground. People can see it, and also people, they talk, you hear something, somebody else tells, and that's how the community has heard about Deka's story, and that what helped them when they cut daughter to bring them hospital. So I hope that's clear, and I'm happy to take a question. Sorry if I talked over.
No worries. I mean, we can hear you loud and clear. So thank you very much, Ifra. That was a wonderful testimony. And also, it highlights your passion and your advocacy in this. So I was telling the audience earlier, I'm originally from the Philippines, and Indonesia also has a very high case of FGM. And when you mentioned earlier, please don't stop talking. It's not just for, for people in Indonesia, but across the world. We need to stop this practice. And you're one, I'm very proud to have met you, and I'm very proud, all of us are very proud of what you're doing. And also with what Shudu is with us today, and she's our UNFPA regional champion. So I was just wondering, Shudu, if you can join me here up in the stage. By the way, while we're bringing in Shudu, can we see your dear daughter? Is she with you today? We would love to see her. She came in. We would love to see her. I have 3 sons, and I'm sure, Ifra, perhaps in the future, we'll have dear sons too, because they are our partners as well. They can be the voices for the women. Agree? Gentlemen in the room?
Yes.
Totally agree. Dear sons, watch out for that. That will be the next campaign. So, feel free to bring in your daughter, because we can be, like her champion and all the champions. We can all be champions for all the girls. So Shudu, hello again. And Ifra, Shudu just came from Ireland, and like a few weeks ago. It would have been great if you met together. So I was wondering, Shudu, you can perhaps ask Ifra some questions, but where is this power coming from? Like we talk about menstruation. I'm petrified. I'm embarrassed about menstruation, and all of us women here are experiencing it. What about FGM? So when I'm hearing Shudu, when I'm hearing Ifra, where do they find this voice? Where do they find this power? So maybe we'll start with you, Shudu, and then have a conversation with Ifra. Thank you.
Hi, Ifra. It's so amazing to meet you, but also so inspiring to hear your story. Daisy's asking where this power comes from, but I think it comes in the knowing how much strength and how much power stories hold. I mean, if you didn't tell your story to the world, a lot of people wouldn't even know that FGM exists. I think when we educate one another on these issues, these harmful practices that are still prevalent, not only on our continent, but globally as well, like you're saying, also in the Philippines, it's a huge issue. So I think my power, or the strength to tell my story, comes in knowing the strength and the power that our stories hold, the good and the bad. So yeah, that's where my power comes from. Is she still there? Oh, okay.
Is it me talking, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I would say because, when I came to Ireland and I was told that I have to do checkup, and people were shocked about and asking question why and how it happened. And also Ireland, which is a country that I was told you are free and you can live, without worries. And knowing that countries like Somalia, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Egypt, country where FGM is practiced, are also living in this country. I felt that young girls who are born in Ireland and raised in Ireland should not be going through what we have been through. And my strength is for me looking them and say, you know what, that I really want to protect them. And my daughter was born, I call her COVID baby. She was born right before COVID. And for me, holding her even make me more realize how much I really wanted to continue this campaign and end in FGM. And, now I say she is part of my strength and make me every day stronger, even if I am really not stronger.
I think what's also fascinating is how most of the people that live in countries where FGM is prevalent, they don't see anything wrong with it. So it also shows the power of information and also the power of being told that you actually have autonomy, you know, like you actually have freedom over your own body, because you said when you got there and they were checking up on you, and also seeing the trailer. Before that, you didn't think anything was wrong. We just told that this is how things are supposed to be. But once our minds are empowered and once we have access to information, that's when we know that, no, actually we can change this, and this is not how things are supposed to be. So that was super inspiring.
Yeah, I think, and that, you know, just a little bit reflect on that, knowing that there's nothing wrong us, and coming to Ireland actually completely make it different, because, you know, in Somalia, grandmothers you're living with, she would give you maybe something hot and say, when you get your period, it's fine, you can be fine. But when you're in Europe or you're in Ireland, you are told that there's nothing fine, you have to go to doctor and see what's wrong. And you are checked, it is a completely different. So yeah, I think it's a completely two different worlds of, you know, living, and two different cultures. So yeah.
Thanks, Ifra and Shudu. So now we're opening the floor for questions in the audience. So we'll take 3 questions. Cognizant of the time, we started late, totally our fault. We'll blame technology for that. But we will take questions 1, 2, and 3. We'll take this side first, and then we'll move on to the next side. So yes, ma'am. Can we? Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Salam Ndale, and I am from Ethiopia. I have questions for both Shudu and Ifra. The first question is for Shudu. Thank you very much for your storytelling. It was really nice, and it was really inspiring. And my question to you is, how accessible is your book, especially to the rural community? Because it seems very inspiring, and there is no one who needs more inspiration than the people living in rural areas. So how is the accessibility of your book in that area? For Ifra, I think I have a lot of questions, but I try to minimize it. The first one is the Dear Daughter campaign. It seems a really good campaign, but my question is, in the Somali region of Ethiopia, there are lots of women who are convinced against FGM and who are not getting their daughter. But still they are telling their daughter not to tell anyone that they are not cats, and they tell them, if you are asked, tell them or answer as if you are cats. So how, now that you say 18,000 women came out and advocated for this campaign, what is the secret for this success? Because how do you empower those women to come out and speak out against FGM? That's my question. The other one is, you said you are living in Ireland, I think, and you are doing community work in the diaspora community of the Somali community. I think this diaspora community I think there are lots of movements also in the other European countries. So is there any connection with this kind of movement in other countries? And if, how is the Ireland government supporting you in your movement? And the other thing is, one of the cause for like early child marriage and FGM is sometimes also the diaspora community, because they are now that the smartphone is very accessible to the to Somali region, especially in Ethiopia, it's easy for them to communicate through WhatsApp or other social medias, and they meet guys in the diaspora community, and those diaspora community are showing desire or like their interest in marrying someone young, someone who is already cat. So this is influencing the community, the children, to insist to their parents to get married early and also to get cat. So how do you see that? Is this also something common in Somalia, and how are you doing it? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's not stop talking. All right. We'll move to the second question. So please ask your question.
Hi, everyone. My name is Naomi Maina from UN Women East and Southern Africa Regional Office. So before I ask my question, I gotta say I'm really excited to be in a room with powerful women. Shudu, I'm a personal fan. I followed your story And what I remember is we said, as Africans, we don't need to put our hair some type of way to be told we are beautiful. We are beautiful with our natural hair, and that sticks to my head. So I'm a big fan, and continue the good work. And I may need a photo with you later. Just so on to my question. I wanted to ask in terms of, so we keep saying let's stop harmful practices, let's prevent them before they happen. And in terms of survivors, you are big on mental health, and how do we encourage survivors to believe they deserve every good thing? Because it tends to bring their esteem so low, they don't think they deserve anything so good. Talking from interacting with survivors before, I'm just saying, how do we put them in a place where they have high self-esteem, they believe in themselves, and they have confidence to talk, and just so that they don't feel like they don't belong to society? And these can also apply to my neighbor here, Madam Benedict. She happens to be my boss sometime, but I know she doesn't know that. But anyway, let's, in terms of mental health of survivors, how do we do that, and how would you advise? Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your presentation and all you do. I just have like 3 questions. And the first one is, I'm happy that you are involving different stakeholders, and I'm happy that it is a man that is actually holding a mic now, when we know that we are in a world which is full of patriarchal society. And I just want to add, for example, in Nigeria, we have what we call anti-FGM champion, who are championed by men, you know, religious leaders, traditional leaders within the community. So how well are you, you know, involving men in this advocacy process? That is one. So I'm just concerned about the percentage also. And I'm thinking, do we have any legislative actions that help us, you know, to protect survivors when it comes to breaking the silence, one, as well as also perpetrator, you know, putting perpetrator into book? Do we have any legislative action in Somalia to guide against that? That's one. Generally, also for you, also, I really appreciate you for what you're doing. And I also want to say that, can we increase awareness towards making sure that we provide comprehensive sexuality education for out-of-school children? It is very important. How well are we giving age-appropriate information to people? Do our governments ready? Are they ready to annex this potential towards introducing comprehensive sexuality education into our school curriculum? I think we need to start also to start talking about that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. So I think we're going to start with you, Shudu, about sharing your powerful story, and you have a big fan in the audience here. So perhaps you can touch on that, especially on the mental health for survivors.
Okay, so thank you so much for your questions. With the first question, your question was, how do we make sure that it reaches the rural areas where it's really needed? So currently in South Africa, my book comes in 6 different languages, because literature and understanding the information that you're receiving is also quite important. And those languages target different areas in South Africa to make sure that when we do go into those areas, we're not giving them something that they cannot understand. It's a respect for the culture that's already there, but making sure that the information that they receive is something that they can understand in their own language. So that's just in South Africa, but I've got a second book that's coming out at the end of this month. And with that, the plan is to make sure that it doesn't only reach South Africans, but also Africans in general, because our stories are so intertwined. You may say it in a different language, you may say it and you can come from a different place. But when I tell you my story, it resonates with every single person that's sitting in this room, whether you're a man or you're a woman. So I've always been a big believer of reaching people where they are and not where I want them to be. And that is the goal of my work and every single partnership that I have. So in South Africa, it does reach the rural areas in languages that they can understand. And then with your question about, let me see if I remember, survivors. So the first time I sat in the UNFPA offices in New York, I spoke about how interventions often take the form of physical assistance. So you take someone out of a harmful situation, struggling to find the English for that. But you take someone out of a war-stricken area, or you take someone who's a refugee, who's run to Ireland, for example, to seek asylum. But we really focus on healing the physical, but we never really focus on healing the mind. And that is the reason why I partnered with the UNFPA to not only advance the work or their mandates, but also to bring in a mental health lens to the interventions where humanitarian assistance is concerned. Because I remember, I think it was 2013. No, not even 2013. It was probably 2010 or 2011. I was watching America's Next Top Model, and that was the first time I heard of FGM, because there was a model there. Her name is Fatima, and she spoke about her experience with FGM and how she underwent that. But as she was speaking, like you can use, like she was breaking, like on camera. One would think that she's moved to New York now. She's living this glamorous life, so she should be fine because she received the health assistance, the physical health assistance. But the truth is, we need to also it needs to go in tandem with mental health assistance. If we are giving people humanitarian assistance, it can't just be physical health. The World Health Organization defines health as a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being. So when we are giving interventions, or we are finding innovative ways to end harmful practices or give survivors assistance, it can't only be physical. As we sit here, we all look great. But the truth is, 1 in 4 of us here are going through something. But just because you look fine, it doesn't mean that you are fine. And having done work and also been exposed not only to the work that the UN is doing, but also the African Union, where peace and security is concerned, it's not only mental health assistance to the survivors, but also the people who are assisting their survivors and caregivers as well. So I think it's just directing resources not only to physical health, but also to mental health to the survivors as well. And then with your last question, it was about giving comprehensive sexual education. The truth is, in Africa, there are a lot of cultural nuances that currently exist. So when we have conversations about mental health and sexual education, for most people, it's a taboo conversation. There's a lot of stigma around it. And that stigma starts all the way from government down to civil society. And it's up to us to basically speak up. I think it was Ifra and Daisy who said, don't stop talking. And it's through dialogue and conversations like this where we emphasize the importance of it. The thing is, we have agency. We are the majority, but we don't speak up enough about the things that we need. We keep it at rooms like this, but the truth is we need to speak up even in uncomfortable spaces. But in our context, the most beautiful thing is we need to respect the cultures that are already there in order to dismantle the structures that are there to create the spaces and the narratives that we want to see. So in terms of comprehensive sexual education, I fought for mental health education to be integrated into the education curriculum in South Africa. But the truth is, they'll tell you that they have a gap, but they're not willing to fill it. But that doesn't mean that you stop at the first no. We keep knocking until we can get it there, because this is what we need. We need to understand that comprehensive sexual education is not just for girls. Dear sons should be something that we're focusing on too. But that requires us to just speak up and never stop talking about it and talking about the need for it, because we're currently living in a blueprint that does not reflect our needs and the social challenges that we currently face.
Thank you, Shudu. That was very eloquent, and it's beautiful the way that you've integrated mental health into the entire SRHR conversation. And of course, championing. Thank you for being there too. All right, so we're going to move to you, Ifra. There were a few questions that were actually directed to you, talking about diaspora and, you know, the Ethiopia-Somali border, and also the policy and the legal frameworks around it. So if you can briefly walk us through it, and it'll be great. And then we move to the next set of last 3 questions. Over to you, Ifra. Thank you.
Thank you. I started with Somali region, and thank you. That's really good questions. First of all, I have been to Somali region to UNFPA supported a global media campaign with Irish Aid. And, you know, I understand what you're talking about, because when I went there, it was very difficult to understand. And because, you know, me born in Mogadishu and lived in Mogadishu, going to the region was very hard, how the women are hiding things and how they are saying. But we have been doing similar work we were doing in Somalia to the Somali region, media training, religious training. Also, we've been talking to the Somali region government. We know that they have the legislation because they are part of Ethiopia, but it still is a cultural practice and is a cultural norms, and they do really practice. So about the daughter, our approach is just because, you know, a mother saying that I was cut and I have to cut my own daughter, it was not about pushing anyone. It's about, telling the beauty of your child and, protection of your own daughter. And we are telling them, look, whatever happened to you, it happened. But your daughter deserves to have a better life, better education, and, to live the world she wants to live. So that was very simple. And really, the Dear Daughter campaign, we don't want it just to be a Somali campaign. We want it to be a campaign that every activist, every country would adopt it, because it's a great campaign. It's a really a good way of achieving what you're looking for. About the Yasabi community, first of all, I live in Somalia. I just come to Dublin for some reason, but I live in Somalia. I'm part of the Somali community working there. And of course, we do some work with the Somali diaspora. You ask about support for the Irish government. As the IFRA Foundation, we get support from the Irish government, but we never ask to engage diaspora from other European countries. But that was a conversation by the Swedish and Norway, how we can bring the movement of diaspora to continue the fight ending FGM, because we know that also there's some of the community in diaspora are so much willing to practice on FGM. About the early child marriage, you are right, because man who lived in Europe and he's older man, he will go to Somalia and he will find the young girls and pay off their money to their families and marry. That is the other challenges, but we cannot do anything till we have legislation and accepted the government, and also to talk to the country they live in, maybe to say that we know what they're up to. So that's how we are doing things in Somali region, and I can give you more details. About the legislation in Somalia, no, we don't have legislation in Somalia. I'm actually working on with the Somali government to make sure the Somali government actually do legislate on female genital mutilation. Last week, I was the African Union conference in Dar es Salaam. I was so happy to see our Minister of Gender of Federal Government of Somalia. She talked about the challenge of the FGM bill. Somalia is a very, I would say, maybe very difficult country, because we have the sexual offense bill, which is still burning and is banned and has not been legislated. So as an activist, as an FGM campaigner, I really wanted to see the FGM bill is passed. And if sexual offense bill has not been passed in Somalia, then it would be very difficult. The good news is that I'm friends with the federal government of Somalia, and my goal is, having the legislation in Somalia, because always having the FGM bill is a celebration of leadership and the ownership of the government. One thing I find out in Somalia is that people are afraid of law. So we hope that the bill is passed end of this year or early next year. I hope that answers all the questions I've been asked.
Thank you. Thank you, Ifra. That was great. So very succinct and really good brief answers to really comprehensive questions also. So thanks a lot. So we're going to move to this block. We can take a maximum of 3 questions because we're running a little bit late. So we'll start with you, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay. 1, 2, 3. So we end with you, Sola.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Mercy. I work with Samburu Girls Foundation in Samburu. And my question goes to you, Shido. And how have you incorporated and included persons living with disability in your storytelling? Because we have within communities that practice such harmful practices, there's also that intersectionality of girls who have disability, and now there's the discrimination that comes with it. And now when we are telling our stories, how do we choose characters that show and tell the story of girls living with disability so that they can relate to that and also be in a position to know a certain character X was living with disability, this and this was happening, but now they overcame and they are resilient, and I can do that. So what will be your advice to people sharing stories of harmful practices and also incorporating girls living with disability in a bid to leave no one behind? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your story. And I am Monica from Sierra Leone. So my question is, it was two, but you've already answered the one that your book will be available for Africa as a whole. So my question would be how you intend to mentor young girls or women that wants to venture in storytelling, to share their stories, their ideas, to share their personal things through stories, but they do not know how to go about it, since you use your personal stories to share to people and to inspire the younger generation. So how you intend to mentor more girls and young women?
Good afternoon. My name is Zula Kanzabande. I'm from Eswatini. I think my question I'll direct it to Ifra. I want to ask about partnerships for your advocacy campaigns. Have you ever tried maybe partnering with the media, as it is a platform that could help maybe elevate your voice, as you already have a bigger voice in ending FGM. So I would like to ask if you have ever tried to partner with the media, and also if yes, maybe could you share if you have seen some changes in terms of spreading out the word to reach more people. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to say congratulations for having the confidence to share your stories. I think the greatest challenge we've had is having people come out and tell their stories, because everyone feels like they should keep their stories to themselves. When we started the campaign in Kenya, like when it really became, the anti-FGM board came into place and I was given the chance to work as the CEO of the anti-FGM board, I started the campaign earlier, and that's what gave me the platform to become the CEO. And I told the women who have been cut like me that it's not going to work if we don't tell our stories. Because if we don't talk, then the girls will think we are just telling them stories that don't exist. So I said, because I'm the CEO, I have to be the first one to tell my story, because my story will now help the other women to speak, because nobody wants to speak about it. When we were growing up, FGM was something that we were proud of. But when we reached, when we went to a culture that did not accept FGM as their way of life, it became now a shame for us. So now we found ourselves in a shameful situation and nobody wanted to speak about it. But now we have said telling our stories is the only way for us to be able to really tell the next generation of women and girls that it's not right for them to go through this. So I want to thank both of you for using your stories. And then number two, Ifra, thank you so much for the Dear Daughter campaign. For us here in Kenya, we have said that it ends with us, like FGM survivors. We are saying the wearer of the shoe knows where it pinches most. And we are saying it ends with us. It ends with us. It will not go to our daughters. My daughter is not cut. I was with my daughter in Dar es Salaam. I introduced her that I'm a mother who is cut, but not cutting my next generation. She's now an expert in sexual and reproductive health rights. She's campaigning and she's also using her voice at the community level to change the way girls think about all these harmful practices that are affecting them. So what we have done is that we have also started speaking out with a group of survivors. We've started the first storytelling went out. I was just asking Sadia this morning where the link is, because we were somewhere and we told our stories, because she called me to say that we need to do the next group of survivors, because it really takes time for women to come out and say that they've gone through this. So we are doing it one woman at a time. And what we have done through anti-FGM board now and through other organizations that we work with is that we have decided we are going to have the first ever survivors forum for Kenya. And we are going to focus on the first 10 counties in the northeastern region. And we are also going to have stories of survivors put in a booklet, and that booklet will be disseminated to schools, and so that girls can know that it is not, we are not telling them a lie, we are telling them the truth, that the pain we have gone through, they should not accept to go through. And we want every mother who has been cut to protect her own daughter, just the same way Ifra is saying about Dear Daughter, so that every mother And I want also to say, Daisy, I'm a mother of sons also. I have one daughter and sons. And I want my sons to also continue being champions, not to push girls to have to be married, to be married, so that we can have a whole, network of everyone telling their stories and others coming in to support. So thank you very much. And I'm also very happy for Ifra. You went back to live in Somalia. Yeah, that one for me is just, she went back home, went back to make sure that the girls she left back home are protected. For me, that one is just amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. So Shudu and then Ifra. Yeah, quickly. Thanks.
Your question, thank you so much for your questions, and thank you so much for that. With the inclusion of people with disabilities. So before I won Miss South Africa, I have a foundation, and it adopted a school for children with intellectual disabilities and also physical disabilities, because we cannot tell their stories. They also have their own stories to tell. So the inclusion is listening. The inclusion is understanding their challenges and also never leaving them out. We have a tendency, even in how I'm speaking right now, where we often other people with disabilities. But the truth is the inclusion comes with listening to the things that they need, not assuming what they need. So in my storytelling, it's because of the work that I've done and the people that I've met. So if you read it, it's not excluding anyone, but rather it's the culmination of the many stories that I've seen. Because before I won Miss South Africa, my focus was educational and economic empowerment. So through the work that I did with Puripero, that's the name of the school, through the work that I did with Puripero, but also going back home to see the challenges that they face, but also being in a place where I just went back to my 8-year-old self and thought about my grandmother giving sanitary towels or sanitary wear to our next door neighbor, who was a young girl who had to take care of her 2 brothers. She barely had enough school shoes, and my grandmother took it upon herself to make sure that she could give her her basic needs for her to feel empowered enough to go to school, because things like that often exclude the people that we are trying to reach. So in my work, I had to go back home and make sure that I speak to everyone, that I get to try my best to understand everyone. And then you realize that the foundation or the basis of all the work that we do of the SDGs, in fact, is mental health. If you don't empower the minds of people, it's impossible to change their narrative. If we're trying to speak about comprehensive sexual education or FGM, you can't say to people that don't understand what you're trying to, to impart on them. I mean, for us to use our voices and to know that what we're saying matters comes with understanding that our minds are powerful enough, and our minds can receive the information that we're trying to give. So in terms of people with disabilities, I work with them. So I also understand and have done work around mental health, especially people with intellectual disabilities. Speaking sometimes isn't helpful. So we focus on different ways like sports and handiwork for them to be empowered and their minds to be empowered. So that's how we make sure that we don't exclude them. And then with your question about mentoring, other people want to tell their stories and document their stories. It starts with just starting. I started a company called Tomani, which means to start Ngachivenda. And most of us are scared to start. Most of us are scared to tell our stories. Most of us are scared that our stories aren't good enough. But as Ifra and Daisy have said, never stop talking, but also start writing. It doesn't have to be perfect. No, just like I've just always, my refuge has always been writing, because sometimes it's really hard to speak and articulate what you want to say. But just you and your thoughts, and I like writing with an actual pen on things, but just start. That's my greatest advice to people. And when I do get to mentor young women, just start writing your stories. It's never going to be perfect. But the thing is, we are here to talk about the power in our stories. Like for the longest time, I thought my voice didn't matter. I didn't even speak in front of people until 2020. And who knew that the story that I had to tell would inspire so many people? It could be one person, but that one person can inspire so many other people. It's a ripple effect. And we always feel like our stories don't matter, or the change that we want to make will not be big enough. We want to change the world for 8 billion or 7 billion people. But the truth is it actually just starts with one person. That one person goes to talk to the other person. And as we're sitting here, I don't know how many people are in here, 20, 30. But these are 30 people who go home and tell the stories that we were telling here today. And that's enough to start. So just start. Yeah.
Thanks, Shudu. Let's start. So Ifra, I know that you have to run to another appointment, but you have the floor to kind of like recap.
Thank you so much. For the media, basically, you know, first time when I came to Somalia, the media was very difficult and different. Where now journalists are speaking about on female genital mutilation, sexual violence, and rape, and so on. So I always respect media because, you know, media are the people who amplify our voice. And for you to say that, how can we partner? I think you can get my contact from the organizers and you can email us. You know, we don't want just to be a media as a Somalia, but also the African countries, because, you know, we are fighting to end FGM in our African level, and we are there to support our, you know, greatest girls, and especially to make sure our leaders, they get our voices. So please take my contact, and there's always way about Kenya. And thank you so much for your comments. And, you know, coming back to Somalia is not, it has never been easy, but I always felt if I can save one girl's life, I am here. And also you talked about, you know, bringing survivors, and you talked about we as a survivor, we can understand on, you know, what it's like going through in female genital mutilation. And I want to make sure, and I want to say this, Dear Daughter is not just a campaign for Somalia, it's a campaign for every mother who actually gone through on female genital mutilation, who feels that she was cut and she wanted to do her own daughter. And maybe Ethiopia is our neighbors, you know, the Kenyan, you know, the countries, whichever country want to start and take the challenges of campaigning, starting with Dear Daughter, please do approach us, and we will give you, you know, we will give you the guideline, and you can adopt it your own language, and you can make sure every mother's, you know, matters to her daughters and make the pledge. So I think it's really very important that, you know, we have in one campaign and a big, instead of everyone going their own individual. So thank you so much for your comment. And yeah, I remember seeing your daughter at the Tanzania, and that is a very powerful. I don't think I am a very, I don't think I will be able to show my own daughter, because I worry for her future, and I worry for when she goes to school, how she will find her mother, you know, talking about FGM, going through female genital mutilation, especially born in Ireland, and how will she deal with all this? So you're very brave, you know, bringing out your own daughter, and well done to her for being an activist. Thank you so much. Maybe if I forgot something, you can remind me. So thanks.
All right. Thank you very much, Ifra. So this has been a beautiful discussion. Thank you very much, Shudu. And thank you very much, our dear audience, for being with us. I know we're keeping you from lunch. So thanks a lot. We had a different program, but we're going to send you the links. We were going to send some, like, share some movies, and even like a presentation on storytelling, but we'll share that with you over the email because we're running really late. So on that note, thank you very much, and enjoy the lunchtime. Thank you, Ifra, and see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Great, thank you. That was awesome. Just a few announcements. One, Shudu would like to have an interview with the press outside. Just they have only 5 questions. If you would please, yeah, only 5, because they know you need to go. And for the rest of us, I'll be standing outside. I have the meal cards. Just flash your tag. All tags are the same. Just show me a tag, and then I give you the meal card, so that you won't have problems when you go to the Nyamochoma Ranch. Thank you.